Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I could not be more excited for this video today because it is my first ever book review video. And I was really debating starting to make videos about books, but this channel is for myself. It's about me. It's the things that I want to share with you guys, and reading is a huge part of my life. I have always been a super avid reader and still am to this day. It's probably one of my favorite free time activities. Anyway, I thought right now was the perfect time to make this video because I've actually read a handful of really good books lately. I am just super excited to share them with you guys and give some honest book recommendations and tell you what they're about, and maybe you can find your next read from this video. These books are from all different genres. I mostly read romance and, well, I mostly read romance. I used to be super into thrillers, but now I've moved more to the romance side in this past year, and then I have a few fantasy books in there as well. So stick around. I'm so excited to share my recommendations with you guys. Okay, so the first book that I'm sharing is actually my favorite read of all time to this day. This book is a 6-star read for me. This is the book that I'm giving out to friends for their birthdays and Christmas. This is my favorite book. Anyway, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. It's the second book in the 3-book series, which it's like not really a series, but they're interconnected stories. I started with the second one and read Just for the Summer and haven't read Part of Your World, which is the first one. I do want to go back and read it, but I did not read them in any order. I picked up this book at the bookstore not knowing it was a part of any series and read it, and it's been my favorite read so far. Anyway, this book is about Dr. Brianna Oritz and Dr. Jacob Maddox, and Jacob is actually a new transfer to this hospital and they don't really like each other from the beginning. They are both struggling with their own things, and Brianna actually just got out of a recent relationship that she's trying to heal from, and Jacob has his own issues with mental health and anxiety and social anxiety. And that aspect of the book, the way Abby Jimenez wrote the character Jacob, really just had my heart. Like, I loved connecting to him on the level of anxiety and social anxiety and dealing with that and working in such a great career but still struggling with something that you wouldn't really think that doctors struggle with, like social anxiety and anxiety. But I just loved that aspect of the story. I am not going to give you any more on this. The romance, the relationship in this, the characters, I just loved it so much. So highly recommend as your first book you pick up if you're going to read a new book. Okay, so I'm just a huge Abby Jimenez fan now, I guess. I actually just picked up another one of her books, but I haven't read it yet. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This book was so great. So the characters are Emma and Justin, and apparently Justin has this curse that every woman he dates, after they date him, they find their forever soulmate. And he posted a thread about this online, and Emma actually saw it and ended up messaging him. It was kind of a weird start to the story, honestly, and I wasn't sure I was gonna like this, but I loved it. It was a funny slow burn that had me laughing out loud at so many parts. Emma also has a friend in this story, and they both work as traveling nurses, which I enjoyed so much. Like, I used to want to be a nurse, and I think being a nurse is so cool, and to see that aspect of her life in this book and living with her friend and traveling as a nurse was super fun to read about. I just loved the characters in this book yet again. Abby Jimenez is a great writer, and I can't wait to read more of her books. Okay, we are taking a little turn for the worst here. Those were happy, cute, fun romances. Yeah. Okay, so I finally read A Little Life. Took me forever. I will say that this is a thick book with a lot of boring parts, honestly. Like, there's just a lot of description and dialogue between these four characters. So the four main characters in this book are Jude, Willem, JB, and Malcolm, and you kind of follow throughout their lives as they met each other in college and kind of what their childhoods were like and them growing old together. Like, that's literally what the whole book is about, but it's so much more. And Jude, he has a very traumatic past, and this book really focuses on Jude the most, I would say, but like the four characters are all main characters in the story. I don't even know how to explain this book, honestly. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but everyone says that. So if you want to pick up a really sad, traumatizing, long, boring, but super great and in-depth book that will break your heart and make you think about the characters inside of this forever, then you should pick up this book. I will say you do need to look up the trigger warnings for this book, as you might have heard, because there are a lot of traumatic things that happen in this book, and if you are not mentally stable enough or have gone through traumatic experiences, I definitely would not pick up this book. This book was very hard for me to read, and I read the trigger warnings beforehand, and I did not think it was going to be that bad, but it's so much worse than you think. This was also the longest a book has ever taken me to read because I had to set it down so many times over the course of a month, and then once I got about more than halfway through it, I read it in like 2 days. The ending, I literally cried for like 2 hours and could not fall asleep because I was so traumatized and so upset by the ending of this book, and it's just really sad and heartbreaking, but it is a good read if you want a sad book. Back to a cute little fun book, The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I didn't even know the author's name, to be honest. This book was so cute. I'm pretty sure I rated it 5 stars, but this book is about Clementine, and her grandma actually leaves her apartment after she has gone and passed away, and there's this like magic aspect to the apartment that Clementine remembers her grandma telling her in stories about the apartment being able to go into the past, and she just thought her grandma was telling her cute little magical stories when she was younger, but she finds out the apartment does actually have magic in it, and that's when she meets Ewan. He is the man from the past in her apartment, and she ends up falling in love with him, and since the apartment's in the past, that kind of makes a huge issue for the future because she doesn't really know who this man is in the future. But it's a really fun read. I liked the magical aspects to it. It like kind of sent me back to fun books that I would read as a kid. I also really liked the career aspect in this on both Clementine and Ewan's side of things. As someone who has recently fallen in love and is super passionate about cooking, and I actually want to go to culinary school, I loved Ewan's character in this book. He is a chef, and this book just goes into a lot of detail of his like cooking career in the past to the present and how far he's come and his journey and love and passion for cooking, and I can just really relate to that as somebody who has fallen in love with cooking and wants to go to culinary school. So highly recommend. Next is Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. It's the Lakefront Billionaires series, and it takes place at Lake Wisteria. I actually read this before the Dreamland Billionaire series, and that's the other series by Lauren Asher, and I loved seeing how these two stories interconnected and wove together with the characters. There is a second book that just came out for this. It's actually on my shelf. I haven't read it yet, but I can't wait to get into that, and I think that she is writing another one after this. Anyway, this book is about Dahlia and Julian, and they are childhood best friends turned rivals. Dahlia comes back into their hometown after a broken engagement and sees Julian for the first time in a very long time since some things happened with them in their childhood together. The banter and the romance and the spice in this book is so good. This has been one of my top romance books of all time, along with yours truly, because I just ate it up. I loved the characters, I loved the plot, I loved everything about it. It is pretty thick for a romance book, but I think I finished this in like less than 2 days because I was just that into it and into the characters and the story, and it gave like HGTV vibes with like the fixer-upper house part, and yeah, I just love the characters, so highly recommend. Okay, following up that last Lauren Asher book with the Dreamland Billionaire series, we have the fine print, terms and conditions, and the final offer. So these 3 books follow the Dreamland Billionaire brothers. You have Rowan and Declan and Callahan, and they are all dealing with this inheritance that is left from their grandfather, and they all have tasks or missions to complete in order to get their inheritance, and you just follow each of these brothers along on how they fall in love with these girls and the romance of it. And I just loved this series so much. I loved how interconnected they all were. You get each of the characters popping up in the next book, and it just feels like a little family. Each brother overcomes something in their personal and professional life, and I loved the billionaire aspect of it because who doesn't love reading about that and the empire that they've built alongside these relationships that they have made. So the next book is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, or Sager, however you say it, but this is the first and only thriller. I have so many more thriller recommendations, so if you guys want to see a video like completely on thrillers, I can totally do that. This book is about Casey Fletcher, a recently widowed actress, and she goes out to her little cabin on the lake because she is dealing with a lot of stuff, and she goes out there and ends up becoming obsessed with these 2 characters across the lake who she ends up spying on, whose names are Tom and Catherine Royce. So Catherine Royce ends up disappearing, and Casey suspects that the husband Tom has something to do with her disappearance, and reading it is just like, there's so many twists and turns in this book, you honestly don't know which way it's going, and I kept like trying to guess what was going to happen, and at the end I was so shocked. Riley Sager is such a good writer, and I have more of, I think it's a boy, I think it's a he, more of his books that I have read as well. But the twist end up revealing the true nature of the Royce's relationship. It also has some horror elements in it, and you just could never guess the ending of this book. There's so many twists and turns, and honestly I was a little scared at times, but this was such a good thriller, and I would definitely recommend this book and all of Riley Sager's book because I read 4 other ones, and he is probably one of my favorite thriller authors. Okay, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Okay, so this is my most recent series read. I haven't finished it. I'm actually on the 3rd book, Powerless, right now by Elsie Silver. This whole series is by Elsie Silver. I read Heartless, and then I also read Flawless. These 2 are definitely my favorite so far. I'm not really loving this one, but then there's a 4th book which is Reckless, and then there's also a 5th book which I forget the name of, but each book is about a different main character and their love interest, and basically you just follow this family or these brothers on this ranch and see their lives and their love interest. I love the found family aspect. Like, I just literally want to insert myself into these books and go and live on their cute little like ranch with all of them, because as you get further and further into the books, you just see how each character gets married and they have kids, and then in the next book you get to see how they're interconnected, and I just love the growing family aspect of this. I have never read country romance, cowboy romance, if you will, and I didn't think I was gonna like it that much because I'm not like a super country Wild West girly, but oh boy, how I will be picking up some more cowboy romances after this series, because it is seriously so freaking good. Anyway, the main characters in this book are Rhett Eaton and Summer. Rhett is a famous bull rider, and Summer gets sent to his ranch to babysit him for the summer after he has gotten a bad glimpse in the world's view, paparazzi view, for something that he said. And just following their story and how you see this angry, grumpy Rhett Eaton go to this loving and caring man. Oh, I just love this one so much. And Heartless had me even more in love. This one is about Cade and Willa. Cade is a single father, and he actually got, I don't know if they got divorced or not. His wife basically split off, and he has a kid, and he loves his kid more than anything in the world. He is also grumpy cowboy. All he cares about is his kid, and he's looking for a babysitter for the summer. And Willa, Summer's best friend, actually comes to the ranch and ends up babysitting him, and you just get to see how things take off from there. I love the single parent aspect, and I love how you get to see how the emotional and loving side of Cade comes out over this book. I also loved how spontaneous and fun Willa is. Like, I aspire to be like her in real life because she's just so spunky, and she has this personality that is magnetic, honestly. And I loved reading her. I loved their banter. I loved her jokes, her sarcasm, like, so good. So highly recommend, and I can't wait to finish the series. Okay, so that's it for my little reading wrap up. I'm so excited for you guys to read some of these books because these are like my babies. These are my all-time favorite reads so far, and I love sharing my favorite books and giving recommendations. And since this was my first book video, I didn't really know how to like frame or format it, and I hope that you guys can take something away from it and get a good book recommendation and jump into loving reading as much as I do. But anyway, I hope that this inspired you in one way or another, and thank you for watching. I will see you guys in my next video.